our global strategy is to operate iconic assets in iconic cities across the world. Iconic assets like Westfield London in cities like London, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. I think one of the biggest challenges that we as Westfield and also other shopping centre developers face is the impact of technology on consumers, how that's changing, how consumers shop, how they interact with physical retail. So that's very much something that I and the rest of my team are very focused on. I think a way in which consumers have changed is that they have become far less accepting of just average. They are demanding of very high standards, of very high quality, and of new experiences very frequently. So what we've tried to do is adapt our marketing programs so that we do have new events happening, new campaigns happening, a reason for people to come to our shopping centres more frequently than they have done previously. I do think it is important for exchanges to happen, both in terms of knowledge, but also consumers travel a lot now, so we should be able to learn from other shopping centre developers in other markets. This is the second time that we've done an experience with you guys, which is it's something very new and different for us, and we'd certainly look to continue it in the future.
It was actually an invited competition to begin with, so we were up against 3 other architects, so we knew in a way we had to provide something novel for Urban Nest, who have got many schemes in Australia, and they only had 2 small ones in London at the time. So when we saw the site, one of the key things was how are we going to fit 300 units, 300 beds on a tight triangle site without having real strong planning issues. So one of the key things was to release the site and find new area, and that was by cutting down to the towpath level. So the site itself gave a wonderful opportunity to be able to win new area, new accommodation. And I think the other challenge beyond that is they always needed to hit their targets of 300 bedrooms. So every time we were looking at options, if you started to go below that for whatever architectural reason, we had to make sure we find a solution to get it back up again, so there was always a balance. The other key challenges, I think, is the perception of student accommodation, particularly for local residents. They're always nervous that it will be noisy and nuisance and issues like that. So when we were successful with the commission, the key thing working with Urban Nest was to meet the neighbours and tell them what this scheme could give back to them. And the prime one they were just so pleased about was a simple thing like a corner shop, because this area is mainly light industrial and then a small community of residential, and they had to walk at least 20 minutes to a shop. So by telling them we'll give you a local shop, we'll give you improved access to the towpath, we suddenly had lots of support, and I think after that it became a lot easier. We'd not done student accommodation before, but I think for us we've done plenty of residential, and it was taking some of the principles that we know from residential and applying them to student. And the key one was, why not have duplex flats? Most student accommodation is these all on one level, very, very long corridors, and it's like, well, duplex flats are known in residential, let's apply that to the student accommodation market. And I think that's what probably won us the commission, because Urban Nest, they knew as a client that they could sell that as a product to compete in a very saturated market in London, have dual living and be very efficient as well. So it was a very interesting process, also learning that students, the materials and things need to be really robust, and we heard so many comments that students will break things and that, and we were always thinking, no, they can't be that bad. And then we learned, actually, yes, they can, because when we saw Urban Nest's other properties, we couldn't believe how much damage a group of 12 students would just make. So we had to be very aware, and we chose a lot of exposed concrete. I think we would have liked more exposed finishes, but it was quite hard to meet that on budget. But otherwise you apply what you remember as a student, you apply what you remember in terms of living, so it's not that dissimilar. There's so much opportunities in London because there's such a rich, diverse context everywhere. This scenario here, we have an amazing canal, we have connections to the Camden markets, the King's Cross development, the Eurostar comes in right to St Pancras. And I think in London there's always something, wherever your site is, that you can latch onto and feed onto, and they're each unique. And you get support from planners and conservation officers, all that, as long as you engage with the community. And I think that's something that we always try and do when we're working on any schemes, is you have to be prepared to meet them, tell them what the project's about and all those, and you will then gain support. I think that sometimes people are fearful of being ambitious in a project because they think they won't get planning, but if you tell the story, have a clear, strong idea, show the benefits, then you get the support.
My name is Louise. I'm from a company called Tobin Properties in Sweden, and we do residential property development. We saw it as an opportunity to come and see some interesting projects and get inspiration about trends within development and in both the construction, planning and marketing material. Yeah, it has been a nice variety of projects with different kind of unique selling points within them, and that has been really interesting. It's very inspirational to see how this city is doing, projects in different ways. Definitely gonna take everything with us for future projects, everything from small things like how they do the selling books to bigger things about how they do destination planning and plan how to get living societies around the projects and not only build a house.
The Angel Building is really a story about regeneration, so it's how you take a underperforming 1980s building and reconceive that as something of its being in the 21st century. So this is a building that takes a building of 150,000 square feet, converts it to 265,000 square feet, and at the same time takes a space and makes it a place. Okay, so this building is approximately 265,000 square feet on the net. It is a multi-tenanted building. There's about 10 different tenants within the building itself, as well as a number of retail provisions, and also a number of roof terraces that everyone can enjoy. I think one of the most important things from my perspective of seeing a really successful project come together is ensuring that the design team understands the client's ambitions and matches their ambitions and able to actually deliver a really exceptional project. We're very fortunate to have a client like Derwent London on this project who had very high ambitions and was very keen to assemble the proper team to execute that. Some of the opportunities that we discovered as working through this project really focused on the idea of trying to maximize the net lettable, but at the same time having some generosity, so giving some generosity back to the building in terms of roof terraces, common parts, cafes, restaurants, to really make the building turn into an active place. So we didn't squeeze everything. There's a nice balance between what you realize and what you don't. London's a very international city. We're very fortunate to have a number of people that are not from London that come to London to work and to live, but also to visit. And that gives us a real opportunity to take people around and show the sort of things that we're doing in London, and gives them a contrast of what they might be seeing back in their home country as opposed to what we're doing here. And it's a very international team that works on these projects, so it's not just British architects that are doing this. There's in my practice, there's people from all over the world that work on a series of different projects, whether it's housing, commercial, art galleries, schools, hospitals. So it's a very international city. I think it's always useful to see what other people are doing, not to copy, but to find inspiration and to learn lessons, so that we're always constantly improving on what we do. And that's a very normal part of architecture and development, where we often go to see other buildings that are being constructed, not only to see about the way the buildings are constructed, but actually smarter ways of building them, for example.
Box Park is the world's first pop-up mall. It's built from 60 shipping containers. It's built in the heart of Shoreditch, and we're the home to about 40 independent retailers. And I just felt that was going to be a really boring world if every town that we went to had the same sort of type of retailers, and I wanted to create a special home where independent retailers could thrive, because fundamentally I believe that people want to feel special, and to feel special, it means that they want to wear things that no one else can get. In terms of the business model, our business model is that we lease sites for a period of up to 5 years. Sometimes we do that under a JV arrangement with the developer.